All right, guys, welcome in, man. We got a special week of college football heading our way, man. We are less than 2 weeks away from the grand finale, beginning, whatever you want to call it, man. It is college football season, and we are officially back. College football's kicking off in Ireland this weekend, so we finally got something to watch on TV. I'm sure a lot of you guys are tired of watching Major League Baseball, the Olympics, whatever you guys got going on, man. But I got a special guest today, man. We are talking we are talking Southern California, and we are talking about LSU, man. It is the Las Vegas Classic, one of the most anticipated games of the upcoming season, not only just the opening weekend, but the entire season. Two historic powerhouse programs. And I got my guy Marc Kulkin here. He works with WeAreUSC on On3. He's a columnist over there. He also does the podcast for the Locked On network there covering everything USC. So if you're watching that from that perspective, make sure you go check all of that stuff out. I'm your host, Michael Set It All. We are doing the Set It Off network. Obviously, a lot of you guys know I cover the LSU side of things, but today I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of what the SC folks are thinking down there because we all put the blinders on, right? And we all see everything from our perspective. But Marc, man, I gotta ask you something, man. Going into this matchup, like these teams couldn't be more similar. If you look at both of these teams on paper of what fans are expecting from their team, and I'm sure your fan base, and I know for a fact our fan base puts on those bias goggles, and boy, it is going to be perfect, and everything is going to work out. The defenses are going to be better. The new quarterbacks are going to be amazing, and they're just going to pick up right off where the two Heisman Trophy quarterbacks left off, and everything's going to be just fine. But from your perspective, man, what is going on with Southern California? Like, what is going on out there? What are you hearing from practice and everything you got going on?
So first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it. What the biggest off-season storyline for USC, and I'm sure it's probably the same for LSU, is we both replaced defensive coordinators that needed to be replaced and are anticipating having much better defenses in 2024 compared to what we both saw in 2023. I would say LSU's defense was just a little less crappier than USC's defense. Hopefully this isn't a family show because I will use a little bit of my French lingo in here. So yeah, that's been the biggest adjustment is USC fans are looking forward to seeing how big of an improvement can USC make in 1 year, less than a year, on the defensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of hope. You know, USC brought in D'Anton Lynn, who was UCLA's defensive coordinator in 2023. In 1 year, Lynn helped turn around UCLA's defense. They have the #2 rushing defense in the country, and I believe a top 10, top 11 defense overall in the country. If he can have just a smidgen of that success at USC, we know offensively everything's going to be fine as long as Lincoln Riley's calling the plays. So when you can all of a sudden now make USC usable on the defensive side of the ball, we know they're going to be proficient on the offensive side of the ball. There's a lot of hope. They're looking forward to this game against LSU because, as you said, mirror images of each other. Garrett Nussmeier's taken over at quarterback. Miller Moss has taken over at quarterback for USC. I do think each team has some advantages that they're going to try and use against the other team's weaknesses. USC, I think, has a big advantage of the skill position players, specifically wide receiver. And I think one of the weaknesses, at least perception-wise, is LSU might not be the strength in their secondary. So I think that's going to be the big test everybody's going to be looking at. Obviously, LSU is going to want to lean on their offensive line. They got a couple of All-Americans that are considered NFL draft picks. We're going to see if USC's defensive line and their front seven can hold up against that. That's the storyline of the game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You hit it right on the head, man. Because it's one of those things where, like I said, everybody's optimistic beginning of the year, and you really don't know what you got until, you're out there facing other people, right? And we don't know what LSU's secondary is going to look like. Obviously, everybody's optimistic. They read the practice reports and see that the defenses have been improved. But like you said, when you go up against a team like USC with the weapons that they have on the outside perimeter and guys who can go make plays, man, it can make your life very difficult, as LSU has found out last year, with a lot of the unknowns Florida State had, right, with the offensive weapons and Keon Coleman going there,
Right.
Johnny Wilson being there. Like those two guys had their way with LSU secondary, and you really don't know how bad it is until you see it on the field. And obviously, it's from an LSU's perspective, we're all praying that, and there's no way in the history of LSU that they might have a worse defense than they did last year. Like it was so bad. I think a lot of the LSU fans will agree with me. They know, but I think you're absolutely right. LSU is going to lean on this offensive line this year. A very veteran group is going to help. I also think Gary Nussmeier being there for so long, maybe not seeing the reps, but I don't know if he's going to get into situations where he's super uncomfortable, being that he's been in college and he's played in games, maybe not as the guy, but he's still seen a lot and he learned from one of the best quarterbacks in college football over the last, 20 years. So that also helps, but he brings a new dynamic to the offense that LSU is not going to have the running quarterback and going to lead the team in rushing like Jaden Daniels did the last 2 years. So my biggest concern, honestly, with LSU is what does that offensive look like now that Jaden Daniels can't really bail them out of sacks? Like, does it has he been kind of masking the offensive line, or what does the run game look like now that you have to lean on actual running backs in the run game? And like you said, there's a lot of great talent in the LSU receiver room, but a lot of unproven guys. You have a guy like Kyron Lacy coming in as a third guy who's looking to make that leap as the number one, and in fall camp it looks amazing. But we all know this defense is going to come down to who can get the necessary stop or that big turnover. In no way or shape do I think this game ends up in a blowout on either side, but this is definitely one of those games where you can easily see it coming down to a fourth quarter interception, a sack fumble type play that could change the whole course of the game. Now, one thing I do want to touch on with you is obviously Garrett Nussmeier being at LSU for so long has a tremendous relationship with the team, and like a guy who everybody believes in, all the fans love him because in this day of age of transfer portal, he has stuck it out for 4 years, which is unheard of, right? Miller Moss, I did some research on him and I know he's a USC guy growing up. So, like, what does him being the quarterback now mean for SC? And I saw the way the guys reacted to him in the bowl game. Like, they love him just as much as we love Garrett Nussmeier. So, I think that actually means a lot going into a season when your players believe in a new quarterback like that.
No, you touched on it, Michael. When you're in the program for, a certain amount of years, there's a familiarity and you actually know the playbook. And that's what Garrett Nussmeier's been doing behind the scenes. He's been playing behind Jaden Daniels. Same thing with Miller Moss. He sat behind Caleb Williams. Before that, you know, Jackson Dart came into USC. There was Keaton Slovis. There was that whole COVID thing that was going on. Miller Moss has put in his time. And there was a point where, he was actually questioning, should I be here? But you also, you keep going, you keep fighting on, so to speak. And when you know that you've got one of the best quarterback gurus out there, and you have the opportunity to learn from that, it's kind of like, how do rich people get rich? You go hang out with rich people and learn how they did it. Well, that's the same approach that I think that Miller Moss and Garrett Nussmeier are taking. You got to stick it out. You got to earn it. And that's what Miller Moss did. He went through that transformation. He earned the trust of Lincoln Riley, which, look, if you want to play quarterback for that man, you have to earn his trust. So what did he do? He steps into the Holiday Bowl, goes up against what was considered one of the top defenses in the country. Louisville, I believe, had a top 30 defense. And he just looked like he was the Heisman Trophy winner in waiting. He just like, give me my chance. He went out there, threw 6 touchdown passes, 370 yards, and he was doing it with freshman wide receivers. Yeah, Taj Washington was out there, but for the most part, his targets were Mekhi Lemon, Deuce Robinson, Zachariah Branch, Jacoby Lane. Those guys are in their second year. Those are the guys that Miller Moss was getting most of his practice reps with last season. So that familiarity is there. That chemistry is already there. I'll be honest with you. I was a little, maybe shocked is the wrong word to use, but the fact that LSU had to hit the transfer portal to get wide receivers kind of blew me away. I I think CJ Daniels is going to be someone that USC has to contend with. But I think that's an advantage to USC because the strength of their defensive side of the ball is in the secondary. And I don't know if LSU has the skill players that Miller Moss gets to use, that Garrett Nussmeier gets to use. So I think it's going to be more of a, to your point, who's going to control the offense? Who's going to control the clock, the line of scrimmage? Who's going to make fewer mistakes? And that was the one thing that really stood out with Miller Moss compared to Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, like Jaden Daniels, they can use their legs to escape, extend plays when things break down. Miller Moss just took a different approach. Hey, no one's open. I'm going to put the ball at my receiver's feet or the running back's feet. Let's just play another down. Let's just keep going. Let's not play behind the sticks. That's what you get with Miller Moss. You get a very cerebral, very smart, and intelligent who knows how to play the quarterback position. And he doesn't have to put the game on his shoulder. He's got plenty of guys around him. I mentioned the wide receivers. You got 4 really young running backs and a guy named Woody Marks, who played at Mississippi State last year, that had a pretty good game against LSU. So there's enough there that offensively, I think USC will be okay, even with a brand new quarterback.
I got you. And you touched on a couple of the players that I kind of wanted to ask you about, especially a guy like Woody Marks. Most people don't understand, like, they see from our Southeastern Conference goggles that we use as well, and the Lincoln Riley thing and all the buzz about him not wanting to come to, like when the whole Oklahoma thing happened, him not wanting the LSU job because he didn't want to come to the SEC. I think all that's baloney, but everybody believes that kind of stuff. And then all the stuff this year coming out where it was like he didn't want to play LSU and like crazy stuff like that. I don't get into much of that, but trust me, the people that watch this do, and it's bad some days.
I will be the first person to call out Lincoln Riley or USC when I see that type of stuff coming out. I'm a huge proponent of taking the toughest road to get there. I hate the path of least resistance. I look forward to these out-of-conference games, USC versus LSU. I was looking forward to USC versus Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Whether or not USC or Lincoln Riley didn't want to be a part of that, that's for the Paul Feinbaums of the world to throw that out there and say, let's get everybody all heated and get everybody's opinion out there.
It's talking season, man.
Exactly. Absolutely. I guarantee you, Lincoln Riley knew USC was moving to the big conference before he took the job. Promise you. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was running from the SEC, no, that's just not happening.
So let's get back on to my point about, let's talk about the playmakers that maybe the casual LSU fan doesn't know. A lot of them probably don't even know that Woody Marks plays for USC. This is what, the second year in a row y'all taking a dip out of the portal from a SEC running back position. Got
yeah, last year we took Marshall Lloyd from your guys in South Carolina.
From South Carolina, but obviously, if you're a college football fan, you know who Zachariah Branch is. LSU actually recruited his brother
Ion
in the secondary. They really weren't in on the star power of Zachariah for sure. They weren't really in contention, but they recruited his brother to come play for them really hard. So I know personally about Zachariah Branch, but like tell me, like who is the supporting cast around Zachariah Branch that is going to make his job a heck of a lot easier this year?
So I'll start with who's backing up Zachariah. If you're looking for someone who can play in that slot position, but you can also move outside of the flanker, you might recognize the name Jay Fair. He played wide receiver at Auburn last year. He transferred in. But your core wide receiver group, I mentioned Zachariah. You've got 6'4" arms that go on forever. His name is Jacoby Lane. Very athletic. The guy he's got a 48-inch vertical. You've got Deuce Robinson, who was considered the #1 tight end in the 2023 recruiting class. USC said, no, we're going to make you a wide receiver. So that's how he ended up at USC. And then Mekhi Lemon, who was one of the top wide receivers out of the state of California, Los Alamitos High School. He came in with Malachi Nelson last year, who was considered the #1 quarterback in the class, who ended up transferring to Boise State. USC, again, the USC is known as wide receiver U for a reason. They're constantly putting guys into the NFL. This is just the latest crop. 4 sophomores that every single one of them is an NFL wide receiver. And this is not hyperbole. This is not me looking through it through USC blinders with any type of bias. This is coming from the guys who do the scouting, the NFL reps. This is a really dangerous group of wide receivers that Miller gets to use. And that's why I said he doesn't need to put the game on his shoulders. He could play the game like a Matt Leinart, who was surrounded by Reggie Bush, Lendell White, Dwayne Jarrett. I mean, the list goes on. Matt Leinart had some really gaudy stats, but it's not like he was running around out there extending plays. He was just throwing the ball around to whoever was open. We're hoping that Miller Moss is going to not only use those wide receivers, but Lincoln Riley will now incorporate the running game. Use Woody Mark's strength, which is catching the ball out of the backfield. But at the same time, give him a crease, he'll run for 50 yards, score a touchdown on you. There's a lot of skill position players on this roster. It's a matter of, can Lincoln Riley utilize them all? Can he get the ball into everybody's hands? That's going to be the challenge for LSU's defense. You can't double team one wide receiver. You can't focus on Zachariah Branch. Otherwise, you've got Jacoby Lane, you've got Deuce Robinson, you've got Mekhi Lemon, and you got the guys behind him like Kyron Hudson, Kyle Ford, Jay Fair. The list just keeps going on. There's not a lot of difference between wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 8 on that roster. It's just a matter of these guys are just a little bit better than 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, man, that's a great problem to have. And there's been plenty of years LSU's had that problem too, right? Because,
Just lost to the NFL.
yeah, and the whole wide receiver youth thing, man, there's tons of schools out there that make those claims, but definitely LSU, USC, Ohio State, those are the teams that really can back it up with the numbers, right? All right, Mark. So this is what everybody's been waiting for. This is the reason why they watched the video. You got to tell me, Mark, I'm gonna stay out of this one. I'm not gonna persuade you in any way. You know, I obviously know you're probably picking USC to win this football game, right? All right. But I need you to tell me, what is the path? What is the path for Lincoln and Riley and the Trojans? And what does Sunday night look like for USC if they come out victorious? How does the game play out in your eyes?
So if USC's offensive line, which returns starters from last year, it's a mix. There's some young guys also that are mixed in there. You've got 6'7", 320 pounds, Elijah Page. You might have seen it on Twitter. Somebody actually thought it was an AI image, an AI generated image, because he looked like, that doesn't look like a real football player. I know you guys got your 2 bookends on your offensive line. If USC's offensive line, starting with Elijah Page, Emmanuel Prignon, Jonah Monheim, Alani Noah, and Mason Murphy, if those 5 just do their job, protect Miller, open up the holes in the running game, USC is going to be fine on offense. It's on the defensive side of the ball. This is where all eyes are going to be focused. Can USC's defensive line play for 4 quarters? You know, last year it was kind of like, all right, USC's defense will play, and as the game went on, they just wore down. And then eventually got to the point where, do these guys even know what they're doing? That's the difference this year. A new defensive coordinator, a new defensive coaching staff, players who actually are playing with confidence now. When I leave practice, I take away so many things from the players. And the first thing I hear is, one of the first things I heard from the linebackers, which was one of the biggest weaknesses last year, was, we know how to play football now. We're confident. I never want to hear one of my starters saying, I know how to play football now, because that's a really big indictment on what was going on before that. So that's the difference this year. If USC's defense just, it looks like a defense, doesn't look like they're getting pushed off the ball every time it's snapped, that's going to be the difference. I mean, again, when you're scoring 40 points a game, you shouldn't be losing because you're giving up 42, 43 points a game. That was the problem last year. Again, USC put a big emphasis during the offseason, get bigger, get stronger. They've been very successful. When you look at the roster today compared to what you saw them last year, you wouldn't recognize them. So just like LSU, you're hoping that all these new pieces come together. You knew you had the talent. You're changing the scheme. Can you get it all working together in day one, game one? Will it work? That's my concern because there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be busted assignments. It happens. You got to work through that stuff. So whoever makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win this game. Do I think USC can win it? Sure. I know that line started at what, 6.5? It keeps dropping really fast. So those people know something. And I get it. You're just trying to get even money on both sides. Still, if people weren't seeing a little bit more confidence in this USC program, the lines aren't dropping. So there's got to be something going on there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and how I honestly I feel like this game is going to absolutely turn on its ear. Like everybody's going out there expecting a 40-38 final score, and I honestly feel it's going to be a little different. I think the first half of this first quarter maybe is going to be a little bit of a feeling out process because
Sure.
I believe LSU, with their new offensive coordinator, their offense might not look the same and things might move around differently. And it might just be different to everybody. And it might, you know, cause issues for concern. I could easily see this game playing out where USC gets off to the hot start and LSU is playing from behind. But from an LSU fan standpoint, like this is as big as a must win for Brian Kelly as there's been since he's been here, I believe, because this whole losing the first game thing is getting really old, right? And you can't go into another season starting off 0-1. So if you put that kind of emphasis, and I believe they have, obviously you want to win every game, but you got to know like your season and the way your schedule works out this year with the 12-team playoff and everything, your schedule is really backloaded. So if you can get through this game, right, you kind of have a clear path until about the middle of the season where you can fine tune things. So I think it's super important for LSU to get off to a fast start and win this game because if they have any chance of making this playoff, it all starts with this first game, I believe.
Yeah, see, and that's I think the difference when you're looking at USC versus LSU and that mirror reflection. USC's front part of the schedule is really front loaded. Those first 6 games, you got LSU in there, you got Michigan in game 3, you got Penn State and Wisconsin mixed in there through the first 6 games. I'm not saying USC is going to lose the game to LSU, but they have a chance to recover right away when they travel and play Michigan in Ann Arbor. Coming out of your first 3-4 games, if USC's 3-1, 4-0, to your point, you're in a good spot going forward. If USC starts 0-1, they've got Michigan ahead of them that hey, you know what? We got a mulligan. We can get back in everybody's good graces if we play well and win there. USC doesn't have to necessarily win this game against LSU. They want to.
Yeah.
I want them to. But, if they lose it by a field goal at the end of the game, that's going to be considered and I hate these, it's going to be considered a moral victory just because of how bad USC looked last year on defense. Nobody expected them. Nobody's anticipating them to be able to make that adjustment what they saw compared to what they saw last year. Last year it was ugly. To watch USC look like they had never played defense in their history was the feedback. And I mean, I could just sit up there in the press box going, all right, they're going to shift right before the ball snapped. And wherever they shift, the offense is going the opposite direction. It was so easy to predict what was going on. You don't get any of that this year. This year, you've got a real defensive coordinator. The players are playing with confidence. They're bigger. They're stronger. Again, I'm not saying USC is going to win this game. What I am saying is USC is in a much better position to win this game than when it was scheduled. If you were looking at USC 2023 and saying, if that team shows up in Las Vegas against LSU, they're going to get their butts kicked. Like you said, it's not going to be that way this year. Both teams are coming in, new defensive coordinators. LSU's got a new offensive coordinator as well. So I think that's probably where I think USC has the advantage. A little bit more continuity, a little bit more consistency, a little bit more familiarity on the offensive side of the ball. So whichever team's defense can step up, that's going to be the difference in the game.
Yeah, it really is. It's all about who's going to make that one big play, that game-changing play, whether it happens in the second quarter before half or third quarter. It never knows when you get But Mark, man, I'm gonna let you go, but I'm not letting you leave here until you tell me you got to give me a final score prediction on what you think's gonna happen on Sunday, man.
You're gonna make me go first? Are you gonna give one too?
I'll give mine for sure. I'll let you know, and I'll tell you. I'll give you my whole breakdown on how it's gonna play out too.
I've got USC winning this game. Duh,
Shocker,
obvious. Right,
shocker.
shocker. It's I've got USC going 43, LSU 37.
Okay, so you're picking the fireworks show. See, I'm leaning the other way. See, I'm leaning the feeling out. These games, they really want you to hit that over. I think it's sitting at 60 something right now. And everybody's talking like, months before this even happened, like this is the easiest over in the world. And those games always turn out to be the worst bets of your life. So I got this game feeling out process. I really think if LSU can get off to a fast start, it bodes well in their flavor, and I think they can pull away. But if they get down, that's kind of where I think things get messy for LSU because you're right. What does this offense look like? Does the offensive line, can they lean on that running game? And then obviously, I think LSU and having a guy like Harold Perkins is really the difference. And what they're doing this year with him and Blake Baker being a linebackers guy and finally teaching this man like what it means to play football and not just be an athlete out there. Like I think that is the difference in the game. I think Harold Perkins makes one of the Harold Perkins plays, and that is the separating difference in this game. But I got a lower final score than you. I'm going to go 34 to 28. I
Wow.
think I think LSU comes up with some stops. Like I said, I think this is going to be more of a feeling out process for things. And I really think the first half is not going to go as people expect. But I think in the second half, teams are going to start letting it rip a little bit more. And I could easily see this game going into half like 17-14 or even lower than that, honestly. And then coming out second half fireworks show like you think. So that's my prediction.
Well, let's not forget special teams either. Special teams always plays a pivotal role in these types of games, whether it's a punt return, kickoff return, maybe somebody blocks a kick. Something's going to happen that's going to maybe turn the tide, so to speak. So about Zachariah Branch as a wide receiver. Don't forget about him returning kicks, returning punts. Again, something's going to happen where, I don't know, maybe CJ Daniels comes over from Liberty to LSU and it's just a seamless transition and he becomes the next Neighbors, the next big LSU wide receiver. I don't know. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm looking forward to hanging out with LSU fans in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. And the
By
drinks
the
are going
way,
to be flying.
when you get out there Saturday, the day before the game, head on over to the Palms Hotel, 10 a.m. The WeAreUSC crew, my Inside the Trojan Huddle podcast. We're going to be hanging out there doing a live show. You're more than welcome to come hang out with us. And then 2 o'clock, the Trojan band's doing their pep rally. See what it's all about. Get
Yeah,
some.
man, I'm looking forward to the West Coast flavor because, like I said, man, I'm just a college football fan. Like, I love LSU, don't get me wrong, but the whole sport of college football is what brings the excitement out of me. Like, I'm more excited for the start of college football than just the LSU USC game.
This game's been 20 years in the making. When they that national championship 20 years ago, I'll never forget this. I know we're up against time. Real quick anecdote. ESPN Game Day came out to the Coliseum, and USC was playing Cal that game, I believe. There was an LSU fan out there, and he saw me wearing my 2003 national championship T-shirt. And he says, "No, that should be LSU's." I said, "Look, we can have the discussion." It was all in fun. But out of the blue, the dude stuck his arm under my nose and said, "Look, I don't even smell like a corn dog." I fell over laughing because I had heard that, I'd heard, that meme, so to speak. I love hanging out with opposing fan bases. Like you said, I love college football. It's the passion. It's the smack talk. But at the end of the day, you know what? We all want to just watch a good game, have fun, and represent. So
And
I
also, at the end of the day, you got to remember, like, we're going to beat the brakes off of UCLA in a couple of weeks, whether we beat y'all or not. And that's a mutual thing. Like, feels like the Auburn thing. Like, hey, like we're rivals, on game day we don't like each other, but man, when you play Alabama and when we play Alabama, we're all best buds. It's all about finding that coexists.
Hey, look, I don't know if it'll happen. People are thinking there's just no way USC can handle an SEC team. LSU, they've just recruited so well over the past. USC doesn't have the horses to run with them. I'm old enough to remember USC heading down to Jordan-Hare Stadium, leaving there with a 23-0 win. I remember LSU walking into Fayetteville, dropping 50 on Pig Suey, leaving with a win. When USC has their players and they've got the coaching staff, the last thing college football wants is a powerful USC. So we're going to find out on USC, can LSU get back to the top where they belong? I cannot wait for this game. I cannot wait.
Yeah, man, two historic programs going at it on the first weekend of college football. It's like we've been gone for so long and we're finally back to college football. I'm super excited. I know you're super excited. Hopefully, man, we get to run in each other at Vegas, man. Maybe the winner, buys the other an adult beverage or whatever.
I'll buy you a drink regardless. Just
Yeah,
show up.
man, no matter what, man. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you having or me having you on and taking this time out of your day, man. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, man. This is a Set It Off podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and make sure you go check out the guys at WeAreUSC and go check on the Locked On podcast for Southern California. My man Mark does a tremendous job over there. So we're looking forward to the upcoming college football season, but I will see you guys next time.